It's Friday, June 1st. My name is Spencer Walsh. Welcome to Newsflash. The war inside the Trump trade team is triggering some pretty global angst. The president's abrupt announcement of steep tariffs on European, Canadian, and Mexican imports really freaked things out, and it was a reminder of the discord inside Trump's trade team. Populist Party in Italy has reached a deal to form a new government. Trump pardons Dinesh and Samantha Bee apologized for swearing on her TV show. And finally, we're going to end the Friday with something fun. Roasting Chris Cillizza. Also, we learned something repugnant about Stephen Miller today as well. I do want to forget. I do not want to forget. Alright, so anyway, we are going to talk about a lot today, so let's get right into it. President Donald Trump had an abrupt decision Tuesday to slap steel and aluminum tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and the European Union. It capped a whipsaw week that reflected not only the deep divisions among its top economic advisors, but the changeable attitudes of the unpredictable president himself. So here's the thing. I really was thinking about covering, because there was a story about this in the news at least every day this week, and I was like, you know what? I got some advice. I was like, do not cover this story until something big happens. And I think we got to where something big happened. So that's why we're here today to cover this story. So tariffs of 50%. We're tariffing 50% of our steel supply right here. Not a good decision. Senior administration officials privately profess to not knowing exactly what Trump will ultimately decide to do on trade at any given moment. The uncertainty has led his president advisors to compete for attention in a bid to sway him, leading to nasty behind-the-scenes fights that are increasingly bursting into public view. So, I mean, we have a leader who is courseless and a rudder steering him along that keeps changing all the time. So that's the problem here. The week began with a statement that the administration would move ahead with trade levies on China just days after Steve Mnuchin said a trade war would be put on hold. Trump's senior trade advisor Peter Navarro rebuked Mnuchin's statement on Tuesday, calling it an unfortunate soundbite. So it's like back and forth. One day or another, you don't know what's going on. I mean, these people, they just do not have their act together on the global stage, which is very scary and disturbing. Because like, why? Like they need to get started. They need to really prove that they know what in the world they're doing, because if they don't know, then who do we got out there representing us? It's a little bit worrying, just to say the least. So the week began with that statement, and quickly Peter Navarro rebuked it. And one senior administration official said privately this week that Navarro's public scolding of the Treasury Secretary was a firing-level offense, but held out no hope that Trump would take any action, because he's not a normal president. He does not know what to do. He thinks he runs the country like he runs one of his businesses, completely crazy and dysfunctional, and any second you feel like it's just going to crash into the ground. Like, that's pretty much where you are at with him. So it's like, yeah, it's definitely a little bit crazy. So one senior administration official said, yeah, what Navarro did is a firing offense. And I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I do kind of have to agree with him, because I mean, it just shows you again, they don't know what you're talking about, especially for someone who's relatively low down on the panel here. So yeah, I mean, the point is just to give you, I do want to give you a little bit of take a step back here and really like show you exactly what's going on with this trade situation. So pretty much what's happening is we are taxing 50%. We are placing tariffs for steel and aluminum on EU, Canada, and Mexico, because they are our allies for national security reasons, apparently. And they have both, all three of them have announced responses that they're planning. So Justin Trudeau, Enrique Peña Nieto, and it's whoever's in charge of the EU. So I think it's like Jean-Claude Juncker. So yeah, that's what's going on there. So we are now officially in trade war with our very own allies. Not even China yet. Not even China. The result of the infighting is a trade policy that's nearly impossible for anyone to understand or predict, which risks undermining Trump's economics, stock, and market gains, which is going to be a big problem for him because not saying like he has stock in there, but here's the key thing. His donors, they have a bunch of stock in there, and his donors, the Republican Party, they're stepping in now and they're saying, cut this out. This is getting too far. Stop playing around with global markets. We need the global markets to be safe or we will lose. So yeah, that's pretty much where they're coming at right now, and they want to protect the global markets, and they're getting the sense that a lot of the Republicans on Trump's team just want to really screw around. All right, so we turn our attention now to Italy. The Populist Party there has reached a new deal to form a government. That's very exciting. Italy's Populist Party was finally given the green light to form a coalition government on Thursday evening after they backed down over their initial selection of a deep Eurosceptic economy minister. After days of intensive negotiations and pressure from the markets, the anti-immigrant hard right League Party, an anti-establishment five-star movement, had agreed to compromise. So it looks like they're working together, and no one there seems particularly trustworthy or good in any way. So that's the disturbing thing. So like Italy, it looks a little bit concerning to be you guys right now. I will say that. So honestly, good luck from here on out, because this is where America taps out. So pretty much what's happening is here. Pablo Savona has called Italy's adoption of the euro an historic error, and we're gonna. This is what he said. He's the now new economy minister, and both parties have come close to forming government at the weekend, only for efforts to be torpedoed by President Sergio Mattarella, who refused to approve their controversial choice as Paolo Savona as the economy minister. So he would not want to approve Paolo Savona. So we'll talk about that here. So here's what Paolo Savona wants to do. He's called Italy's adoption of the euro an historic error. He described the currency as a single currency as a German cage, and calling for a plan B that will allow the country to exit the eurozone. So he pretty much wants to leave Europe economically and not adopt the euro here. An accord has been reached for a five-star league government with Giuseppe Conte as prime minister. The party said in a joint note after dropping their insistence on Savona's position. So Savona is not going to get anywhere there. So, Giuseppe Conte, he's a little law professor, and he's likely to be becoming Italy's next prime minister. I'm not thinking straight. So maybe finally we have made it after so many obstacles, attacks, threats, and lies. Matteo Savoni, head of the league, wrote on Facebook shortly after the deal was now announced. Conte, who's a university law professor with no political experience, who was plucked from obscurity by the two parties to be the prime minister, was summoned to the presidential palace in Rome on Thursday night, where where he was given a mandate for the second time to form a government, expected now to be sworn in on Friday, and it looks like finally, maybe, just somehow, it's going to work here. Savona is now likely to be given the Consolation Prize of European Affairs Minister, and the economy portfolio could go to Giovanni Tria, who's a little-known economics professor. Hey, we're getting all the little-known professors we can here. Professor Tria has been critical of the EU's economic governance, but unlike Savona, he has not advocated for a plan to prepare for Italy's possible exit from the currency bloc. So he is not as far out there as Savona is on that. So instead, here's what he says. He calls for change in the EU's fiscal rules to allow public investment to help growth, and many mainstream economists, has criticized Germany's persistent large current account surplus. So he wants to change that there. So that's going to be pretty interesting for the future. All right, we now turn the. We're doing a story change. You guys, I don't know if you knew this, but Stephen Miller is slightly psychopathic and sociopathic and repellent in more than just one way. There is a new profile out about the top White House aide and explores the limits of just how much trolling a human can do, and it reveals that Stephen Miller is a garbage person who just doesn't seem to care about anything. The Atlantic McKay Coppins, however you say that, wrote a 7,000-word feature about Miller on Monday. His main thesis is that you never really know when Trump's speechwriter and an anti-immigration policy chief is trolling you or not. Reading the profile, it becomes that this is because Miller is just an awful person. He just does these stupid, weird, odd, strange, goofball things, and it just makes you really, really, really hate him. Because, I mean, it's easy to hate. And I guess it's kind of good because it's easier to hate a guy who's like, who's doing all these bad things to immigrants if he's like this, because he is just such an weird, creepy, odd person. And I'll tell you some things he did here. The worst parts about Miller, as revealed in public, were, there is also a bunch of stuff here. So there, it's a treasure trove here of absolute crap. He likes getting rise of people out of people in a very sociopathic way, especially women. That's his main focus, women. What a surprise. So apparently he walked up to a woman on campus once who knew he disliked his politics, and apropos of nothing, just randomly said, this is according to the profile, "You and I would make me beautiful, make me stand there." I mean, one recalled she was typically disgusted by his creepy comments, but she did not feel violated. But and just said, again, he liked getting a rise out of people in a very sociopathic way. He constantly found ways to rile his classmates. He loudly complained of the Spanish language announcements that came over the PA system because he lived in Santa Monica High, and once jumped into the home stretch of a girls' track race, evidently to improve male athletic superiority, which is like such a conservative thing to do if you think about it, because like he's like, oh, and the funny thing is he probably got pummeled. He probably like lost, or he either did one of two things. He got lost, or he like jumped in the home stretch when the girls were like running on the other side. So it was like, I won, and he never apparently stops thinking even about trolling people. His objection wasn't to upset anyone, but it was apparently to challenge people to reevaluate their own assumptions. I mean, there's just a point where you got to evaluate yourself as a person and your assumption probably that you're a good person and say, maybe I need to tamp it down a little bit. And not surprising here, he moved into a fancy building filled with elites that he supposedly hates. I mean, for a man who has long seemed comfortable surrounded by the people who hate him, there must have been kind of a certain appeal to City Center, D.C., where he brought a $1 million two-bedroom in 2014, paid for. Property records indicate with the help of his parents. Not only did the Sparkly Glass complex in downtown Washington, as again according to the profile here from The Atlantic, feature retailers like Gucci and Hermes, I don't know if I'm saying that right, and style restaurants like Momofuku, but it was home to such luminaries as Eric Holder and Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill. He also thinks CNN's Jake Tapper owes him an apology for the interview you've definitely already forgotten about, where CNN host Jake Tapper sparred with him, and he's like, I'd be willing to accept Jake Tapper's apology. And apparently we have Charlton Heston, the former NRA president, to thank for his quote-unquote development. He was, we've known the 32-year-old was raised by well-off Jewish Democrats, in quotes, in the liberal Santa Monica, California, and was a product of relatively diverse public schools. It had no effect on him. He was yelling at janitors to pick up the trash and saying that students shouldn't have to. At the end of middle school, Miller allegedly told a Latino friend who was close enough to get an invitation to his bar mitzvah he could no longer be friends anymore with the friend because he was a Latino. And the conservative education apparently all started thanks to his subscription to Guns and Ammo. He came across a column in there by Charlton Heston, and he recalled it was the first conservative thing he had ever written. When I asked him which books had shaped his politics, this is from the profile here, he rattled off a procession of titles by street artists and talk radio